Israel's first king started his reign blessed by God and loved by his people. He ended it talking to forbidden spirits and falling on his own sword. Between those moments, something broke inside Saul's mind. He went from humble shepherd to paranoid ruler. He tried to murder the musician who brought him peace. He hunted the hero who saved his kingdom. Was it divine punishment, mental illness, or both? 3,000 years later, scholars still debate what destroyed Saul. But the clues hidden in the ancient text reveal something disturbing. The answer might surprise you. The story begins in the book of 1 Samuel, chapter 9. A young man named Saul is searching for his father's lost donkeys. He has no idea that his life is about to change forever. Saul was physically impressive. The Bible says he stood head and shoulders above everyone else. But when the prophet Samuel told him that God had chosen him to be Israel's first king, Saul didn't celebrate. He questioned it. He doubted. And on the day of his coronation, they found him hiding among the baggage. This detail matters. It's our first clue. For a while, things went well. Saul led military victories against Israel's enemies. The Spirit of God came upon him. He prophesied alongside prophets. The people celebrated their new king. But then came the turning point. God commanded Saul to completely destroy the Amalekites, a nation that had attacked Israel. Saul obeyed, but not fully. He spared the Amalekite king and kept the best animals for sacrifice. It seemed like a small compromise. To God, it was rebellion. The prophet Samuel delivered devastating news. The kingdom would be torn from Saul and given to someone better. Saul had lost God's approval. And shortly after, a young shepherd named David stepped onto the scene. David killed the giant Goliath with a single stone. The nation erupted in celebration. Women danced in the streets, singing a song that would haunt Saul forever. Saul has killed his thousands, but David his tens of thousands. From that moment, everything changed. The Bible says an evil spirit from the Lord began to torment Saul. His servants noticed the king's strange behavior. They brought in young David to play soothing music on his harp. It worked for a while, but as David's popularity grew, Saul's torment deepened. The king who once hid from leadership now hunted the very person who brought him peace. To understand what happened to Saul, we need to picture his world. He ruled approximately 1050 to 1010 before Christ. This was a brutal time in Israel's history. Saul wasn't born into royalty. There was no royalty. Israel had been a loose collection of tribes led by judges. No central government, no standing army, no palace. When the people demanded a king like other nations, they were jumping into unknown territory. Recent discoveries at ancient sites called Khirbet Qeiyafa and Tel Eton confirm something important. These excavations show developed settlements in the region from exactly this time period. The biblical timeline matches the archaeological evidence. But being Israel's first king meant more than just wearing a crown. Saul had no instruction manual, no advisors who understood monarchy, no institutional support. He was building an airplane while flying it, and he was constantly at war. The Philistines threatened from the coast. The Amalekites raided from the south. Neighboring kingdoms pressed from every side. Saul didn't fight from a throne room, giving orders. This was the Iron Age. Kings fought on the front lines, hand-to-hand combat, blood and trauma, victory or death. Historians point out that this kind of relentless warfare takes a psychological toll. Modern soldiers who experience extended combat develop what we now call post-traumatic stress disorder. Ancient warriors faced the same battles without any understanding of mental health or treatment. Saul carried all of this: the weight of inventing monarchy, the pressure of constant warfare, the responsibility for an entire nation's survival, and he carried it alone. So what exactly happened to Saul's mind? The Bible uses a phrase that confuses modern readers. It says an evil spirit from the Lord tormented him. But what does that mean? Ancient Israelites had no vocabulary for mental illness. They understood the world through spiritual language. When someone's personality changed dramatically, they attributed it to spiritual forces. But does that make it less real? Look at Saul's symptoms. He experienced severe mood swings, deep depression followed by explosive rage. Music from David's harp would calm him down. Then suddenly, while David played, Saul would grab a spear and try to kill him. This happened multiple times. Saul became paranoid. He believed everyone was conspiring against him. He accused his own son Jonathan of siding with David. He mobilized entire armies to hunt down one man who had done nothing but serve him faithfully. Some scholars suggest Saul suffered from what we now call bipolar disorder, extreme highs and lows, periods of normal function interrupted by episodes of dangerous behavior. Others point to post-traumatic stress from years of warfare, the hypervigilance, the inability to feel safe, the violent outbursts. A recent study proposes something called chronic anxiety disorder. The paper argues that the pressure of unexpected kingship traumatized Saul from the start. Remember, he tried to hide during his coronation. The stress of leadership, combined with constant military threats, created a mental health crisis that never stopped. Here's what makes this fascinating. Music therapy actually worked on Saul, at least temporarily. Modern neuroscience shows that music affects the part of our brain that processes stress and emotion. David's harp playing wasn't magic. It was an ancient form of treatment that we now understand scientifically. But why did Saul eventually attack David while he played? Psychologists explain that when anxiety and trauma become severe enough, even helpful treatments can trigger rage. The mind associates the helper with the pain they're trying to fix. It's called treatment-resistant depression with psychotic features. The story gets darker. Desperate and terrified before a major battle, Saul did something unthinkable. He consulted a medium, a practice he himself had banned, the Witch of Endor. He wanted to speak with the dead prophet Samuel. Even Saul's faith had collapsed under the weight of his torment. The next day, wounded in battle and surrounded by enemies, Saul took his own life. What can modern psychology teach us about Saul's tragedy? Quite a lot, actually. And this doesn't diminish the sacred. It deepens our understanding. Saul's story reveals something psychologists call imposter syndrome, but at a catastrophic level. He was chosen for a role he felt unqualified for. His response? Hiding, avoidance, classic signs of someone overwhelmed by expectations they don't believe they can meet. Then came the comparison trap. When people sang that David killed tens of thousands while Saul killed only thousands, it confirmed Saul's deepest fear. He wasn't good enough. Someone better existed. His insecurity transformed into pathological jealousy. This explains why Saul tried to kill David, not because David threatened him militarily. David was loyal, but David threatened Saul's sense of worth. And when you feel worthless, the person who makes you feel that way becomes your enemy, even if they never meant to. The combat trauma theory makes sense too. Researchers identify clear patterns in Saul's behavior. Hypervigilance means constantly scanning for threats, violent mood swings, inability to experience peace, paranoid thinking. These are textbook signs of trauma from extended warfare. What's heartbreaking is how Saul's condition destroyed his relationships. He tried to kill his own son. He drove away loyal servants. He spent his final years hunting shadows while real enemies gathered strength. Ancient Israelites saw an evil spirit. Modern doctors see mental illness. But perhaps both perspectives hold truth. Maybe God allowed natural psychological processes to run their course after Saul's disobedience. Maybe the evil spirit was trauma and anxiety that Saul never learned to address. The mystery of Saul's breakdown may never be fully solved. Was it divine judgment, mental health crisis, the collision of both? The Bible leaves room for interpretation. But here's what we know for certain. Even leaders anointed by God can break under impossible pressure. Untreated trauma, whether spiritual or psychological, leads to tragedy. And comparison with others breeds destruction from the inside out. Saul's story echoes across 3,000 years because the human mind hasn't changed. We still struggle with feeling inadequate. We still compare ourselves to others. We still carry trauma we don't know how to heal. Perhaps that's the real mystery. Not what happened to Saul, but what his story reveals about all of us. If these ancient mysteries fascinate you, if you want to explore faith through the lens of history and human psychology, this channel is for you. Hit that like button if this story made you think differently about King Saul. And subscribe, because we're just getting started. There are more biblical mysteries waiting to be explored.